Hi guys, Rob here from ServiceScaler. Today I have with me Marty Lewis from ORB Services.
Cheers for having me, Rob. Much appreciated.
No worries, mate. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. So what we might do is just do a bit of an introduction of ourselves, who we are and what we do. So I will let you start.
Mate, happy to tee off. Yes, consulting business for the three different industries that I sort of work with. So professional services, tradies, and medicos. So they're the three sort of industries, but the nuts and bolts of what I do is really helping business owners get control back of their business. Sometimes, you've been in business for 5, 7, 10 years. All of a sudden the business runs you more so than you running the business. And my role is to start looking at why is that happening? Where can we make some changes? And looking at the planning that you've got in place, the people, the processes, and the pulse of your business, making sure that we get all those things working so that you can actually start to steer the ship a bit more productively.
That's awesome. That's a much nicer introduction than I'm going to give for myself, because what I do is a lot more basic than that. So ServiceScaler obviously is an IT solutions or services provider into the legal sector. So we specialize in doing IT systems for law firms. Yeah, it's all about the IT stuff. So anything related to cybersecurity, we're Microsoft partners. So we do lots of Microsoft 365 stuff, moving people to the cloud. We've got good knowledge around how legal businesses work and the types of technology that legal businesses need to be successful. That said, my background is actually far more diverse than just legal in the technology space. So I've former systems admin. I've been and done business analytics, process automation, lots of stuff in lots of different areas. So essentially I'm an IT business analyst. So a wealth of potentially useful knowledge, but that's yet to be seen. We'll get to that. So that's me, and that's ServiceScaler as part of the Mertech group.
Good times, mate. From what we've talked about before, I can definitely appreciate that you're a wealth of knowledge, and I might throw you straight under the bus with it and test that wealth of knowledge out, mate.
Very good.
But when a firm, and if we were to take a law firm as an example, you've got different processes from in terms of managing a CRM. We've got to manage a job, a matter management. Once a client signs on and signs an agreement and it becomes a matter, then they're managing that matter and assigning staff to it. For a firm that has maybe done a lot of this via paper, or has, it's a small firm, half a dozen staff, where do they start with actually integrating this into some kind of nice, streamlined, partially or automated kind of process? Where do they start, and what are the driving forces that really help them decide on which way to go?
Yeah, that's a multi-layered and complex question. I love it. It's good. So the technologist in me would always say, start by going digital. But I think this is probably a question that I can throw back to you in relation to process and having clearly defined process. So it's one thing to digitize something, but we can digitize anything, and that doesn't necessarily make it better. It may make it easier, particularly in the context of working from home at the moment. Everything has gone digital. But I suspect that most people have gone digital without inherently changing the process or making the process any better, which sort of defeats the purpose of doing the digital thing. And that comes back to, okay, well, doing it digital doesn't make it better. What we want to do is make it digital so that we can start automating processes, so we can start integrating things, so we can make people's lives easier. Now, as a management consultant, and I should call you a sultan because you're a consultant without the con, and I love that about you. It's 100% true. Tell me, why is it so important that people define their business processes?
Well, your process is one of those, I call it an unsexy part of your business. But the trade-off to process is that process becomes profit. If you do the work in your business efficiently and well, which means different people in your business know their role, different people execute their role, people know where their role starts and their role finishes. And that could be from a marketing and promotions into a sales, into an onboarding, into a job management into a client delivery, and then from supporting that in a support role to that, administration, HR, all of those pieces of your business need to work well together. And if they don't, then they're going to cause friction. And when they cause friction, that eats into your profit. So process isn't the most sexy part of your business, but everybody is generally very excited by the fact of improving their profits. And one of the easiest ways for people to do that is through improving the efficiency of how they operate.
And this is what you consult on, right? So when you go and talk to clients, and you have some legal firms that are clients of yours as well, this is the stuff that you talk to them about, right? Defining their process and how they can improve that.
Yeah, so this is a huge piece of what I do. And I guess one of the parts is I'm sort of happy to be on the ground and mapping that out and looking at some very basic levels, so that when they come to somebody like you to say, hey, this is our process, we want to automate, they've actually got some building blocks there to work on. You're not starting from complete scratch. The one piece that I do before that, in terms of, because how to define your process is driven by where you want your business to go. So if you don't have a very clear idea on, this is the size of my business that I want, this is the type of work, if we stick with a law firm, for example, these are the areas that we're going to practice in, this is roughly how many staff I think we'd have, this is the capacity that we have now, this is what we'd like to build the capacity to, this is the financial performance, this is a geographical range. If you don't have some sort of just 101, doesn't have to be large in terms of a lot, but it does have to be clear. If you don't have a clear direction on what you're aiming for, you can't build a process that supports it, because you don't know, should you go big, do you go small, do all of those forks in the road and the decisions that you have to make along the way, you can't make them because you're not 100% on what you're trying to do. So it's the point of planning, then process, then people, and they all sort of work in together at that point.
To make profit, of course, at the end of the day.
Of course, like that's what, and profit comes to, for all of it can be seen as such a dirty word, like, oh, you're just capitalist and you're just trying to make money. You're like, well, everybody needs to make money. That's the reality of the society. Like, there is a massive difference between being profitable and being greedy.
Yeah.
And, I'm in no way endorsing that people should be just all about profit. But I tell you what, for all of the positive impact that you want to make in the world, try doing it in a business that doesn't make any profit.
Yeah, it's a challenging thing to do. So thanks for describing that and laying that out. And I suppose that comes back to the question that you asked me about going digital and process and following that bouncing ball. And like you've said, it's really important to define process. So we want things to obviously go digital. So there's the plan, or the way that we would look at it is define process, digitize process, and then automate steps in the process. So once the process is defined and once it's been digitized, it's really easy to be able to automate steps or functions within that process to achieve better client outcomes. And by doing that, you gain better efficiency, you provide a better quality of service to your customers, you do more transactions equals more money, equals more profit, right? So it just relates directly back to what you do and the types of service that you provide. It's really the first step or the first piece that somebody needs to do is clear definition of their processes, what they do and what they want their outcome to be, so they know where to focus and what to change first.
Wait, talk me through, I love the way that you've described that in terms of define the process, digitize the process, and then automate steps within the process, because automating 50% of the process is obviously better than 10% of the process, So for a business who's doing well, and when I say a business who's doing well, they've got a defined process, they've digitized some of the process, either through, you've got a whole spectrum of software that they could be potentially using for that. Let's say that they've defined their process and they've digitized bits and pieces of it. Where do they go? Because one of the things that I've seen is people go down the rabbit hole of, they've got a software that looks after this little piece of the process, and that might be timesheets. And then they've got a software that looks after this piece, which might be HR. And then they've got a software that looks after something else. how do you help people navigate through that minefield to say, okay, this is the software stack? Does that come right back to having a right plan in place and knowing the whole process?
Yeah, definitely. I've seen it time and time again, where people will go, okay, I have a process. I've now digitized it. It's pretty clear. And what I want to do is I have a problem in one bit of the process, or one function of the process. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a single function solution to address that one bit. And then they do that and they go, okay, that's great. And they get that little bit of reward and they feel a bit better and the process is a little bit better. So it's just that sort of constant improvement. Then they go and get another app to fix another bit, and another app to fix another bit. And they go through this process, and then they end up with 20 apps that don't talk to one another, all purchased and procured by different departments of the business that do different functions. They end up with all of these bills. None of them talk to one another. And they go, okay, well, it feels better than it did before, but now I have all of this stuff that I need to manage. And it, like you say, it comes back to preparation and planning for this and going, okay, well, I have a process, and what I need to be able to do is I need to digitize it, but I need to automate functions within the entire process. And the other thing about process is that processes flow into other processes, into other departments of the business. So you might look at something in isolation in a department and then go, okay, well, we've got an automation piece for this, but what about the department that then flows into goes, okay, well, I need another bit. So if you plan early, you can look at that and go, okay, well, what I want to do is I want to look at an application that's going to be able to automate functions within my piece of the process and somebody else's piece of the process and some other department's piece of the process. And by consolidating all of that information back into a single system, or a single application stack, we would call it, where things talk to one another, it makes life really, really simple, because you can go in and go, okay, I've automated this, but now using the same technology, I can automate this and I can automate this. So you only get basically a bill from one vendor. In terms of training people on how to use it, you only have to train them on one thing. It's great. You just go, okay, here's your login, here's your education, go and learn about how the application works, here's the process, and you can go to another department. They're all looking at the same thing. So that one source of truth is hugely powerful in a process, because it gives transparency to that information and to that process at any point in time. So yeah, I'm a big believer in consolidated information stack. Don't go and get 50 different apps to do stuff when you can just get one application stack. We push Microsoft 365 a lot. It's great because everything's just in one location and it's all integrated. So that makes, in terms of processing and doing stuff, it makes it hugely efficient just in itself that it's integrated, but it gives us the opportunity to automate functions of it across the entire stack as well.
I love that. And the piece that I really think, and that I hope people take away from that, is to start early. Somebody who is, oh, maybe I don't need to talk to anybody just yet. The value that you get from talking to somebody like, and I'm not an IT expert, like I can work out how the nuts and bolts work together, and I'm good at helping people extract that information out of their head. But when it comes to which IT or software stack should they use, a lot of that's going to be driven by what they're trying to do with the business. And to have that conversation with somebody like you early in the piece, before they grow, before they put 20 apps in, before there's no shame, there's no downside in that. That's going to potentially help them out a lot in the future, because they know, cool, well, this is where we're going to go. This is we're going to automate the induction process first. We're going to automate the project management first. We're going to automate the invoicing, whatever that might be that's the best for them. They know that straight away from the start, and there's a plan there from the start. Mate, the piece that you touched on that I do want to talk about, what are some of the opportunities for people to maintain a knowledge base in their business nowadays? Software is something that would have brought that, once upon a time you would have had a manual. It's a folder, you come out, you plonk it on the desk, it's all written in instructions. Now we can do things like screen record, we can video, we can do. What exists in the spectrum of knowledge base, and what are some cool things that people can be doing to maintain a knowledge base in their organization?
Yeah, I love the old manual thing. Remember, once upon a time it was ironic. You could buy a computer and it came with a big paper manual, right? And you buy the computer to do everything electronically, and it come with a big paper manual. And you go, read this. It's 1,000 pages. So we love those types of things. But yeah, so you know, a work practice or a work instruction used to come in a paper-based document, so you'd have to go and find those and distribute those, and people would have to read them and remember them. Now that we have digital systems, and digital systems are really accessible, so it doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. If you need to find a work instruction, so that might be a standard work practice or a standard operating procedure, any of those types of documents, defining those is really important. Because it gives you a baseline to work from. So coming back to what we were saying, what you were saying before about just having clearly defined processes in the business is great. Being able to then document those and put them into a knowledge base where workers or employees or staff within your business can go and call on or draw down on that information at any point in time is invaluable. So you're not looking for a manual, you're not fumbling your way through. You can basically go and get access to those resources. For us, we keep our knowledge base. So this is both our internal operations and our client-facing knowledge base to fix technical issues. So they might have a technical problem and they can log into our system and they can see our knowledge base, and it just has some quick documents on do this, and that might fix your issue. Or you can call us and our engineers will look at the same thing, right? They'll go, okay, we do this, we do this, we do this. And it's hugely powerful because it means that we don't have to go through a really long-winded exercise to onboard people and coach them and train them on a bazillion different functions of the business. We can just go, okay, come in, learn where you can find the information. This is the knowledge base. Leverage that pre-existing information, which we have clearly defined, that controls the way our business operates. Use that and leverage that information to deliver the outcome. So that's a hugely powerful tool. In terms of where to store it, look, there's a bazillion different places you can have it. I think it's what is easiest, what is most accessible, and what's most realistic, depending on the size of your business, the structure of your business. You know, we keep ours in our operations tool, which we use, which is specific for the IT industry. So it's our ticketing system. That's where all of our information is kept because that makes sense to us. If I didn't have a ticketing system, I would keep it in SharePoint. You know, being again an M365 house, we would keep all of that in SharePoint. SharePoint's great because it's a web application, so you can you know, have it on your computer. You can browse it over the internet from basically any computer that you can authenticate from. You can have the app on your phone, so it makes that super accessible, and you can secure it down as well, so people can only see contextually when they log in what is relevant to them as well. So yeah, they're good tools and good systems to have and good information to be able to draw down on.
Good times. I think, and just not as a question, more so just as a comment, I see that as the number one shift and challenge for businesses in the future, looking to grow into the future. Knowledge is not the problem. We have knowledge everywhere. It's teaching your staff how to find knowledge and seek knowledge, and encourage them not to just come to people for the answers, but come to systems for the answers, come to databases. You can effectively have a library in your SharePoint of how to solve problems, which can be, you know, hugely beneficial in terms of creating. People can see it in a negative light in terms of, oh, you don't want to spend time with your staff. It's the complete opposite of that. You want to empower your staff to do the job that you've employed them to do without having to, you know, draw on 15 different people to make that happen. So, yeah, I see that as one of the real challenges for people, is to empower their staff to where to find information, how to get it, and what to go forward.
Independence and autonomy comes from that as well. So people are, like you say, empowered to do their role. And I love what you were saying about, you know, don't come to people when the information's there. You know, you shouldn't have to rely on people. And I think a classic example of this, and I was talking to someone about it this morning, you get an inquiry, right? So a customer calls up and says, oh, hey, Rob, someone in your team was doing this for me. Can you find out where it's at? Right. So part of my role is in business development is obviously doing client account management. So they'll ring me and ask a question. I go, okay, great. So what do? I just jump into our ticketing system. I can have full transparency, right? I can see all of that. What if I couldn't?
Yeah.
What if I had to go and find my colleague and go, oh, hey, because all of the information's in your head and not in our system, I need to come and interrupt you from doing what you're supposed to be doing, so that I can answer a question for a client. Now, I've added a gap in there, so now I have to call the client back because I can't access the information quickly. I've disrupted my colleague from doing what they need to be doing, you know, and efficiency is gained by just eliminating that conversation, by eliminating that callback. I've provided better customer service, just having access to the information. Don't interrupt my colleague. Don't interrupt my time having to chase that information up. It's just there. It's just there.
100%. Yeah, huge. There's so many, what I would call, tier one issue is that you can't give the customer the response. And then there's tier twos and tier threes and tier fours that, flow on behind that. And that same principle happens all the time. So, yeah, great example. But curious is something that's really sort of hot at the moment. Obviously, people are getting smarter and smarter. It's great to have all of this information in one place. If we're talking about a CRM, you're holding a lot of details. We're sticking with a law firm. A law firm is holding information about matters. The security of that is incredibly important. One of the things that I know, just from talking to people, there's a concern of, if the information's in the cloud, it's more accessible than if it's on hard drives in our computer, like on site. What can you give people as a bit of a 101 there? Like, obviously security is something that's incredibly important and a primary focus at the start. How does that kind of happen? How do they make that happen for the 101s like me who know nothing about that?
Yeah. So the first thing to realize is that the cloud is just essentially the same computer you have in somebody else's cabinet, right? So you might have a server in your cabinet in the office. All the cloud is that same server in somebody else's cabinet, right? And you're just given access to that. Now, there is a whole raft of hugely beneficial or a range of reasons why you should move to the cloud in terms of scalability of resources and all these other wonderful things. But I can tell you now that in terms of cloud infrastructure and securing cloud infrastructure and provisioning tenancies that clients would use or consume and having your stuff there, the likes of Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and other cloud providers are spending a lot more money on cybersecurity than you are. So that's just plain and simple number one. Where there is gaps though, and there's always gaps, and if it sounds too good to be true, it normally is. So Microsoft and Google and Amazon very much of this train of thought of self-service and self-provisioning, right? So what they want to do is they want to make it as simple as possible for consumers or users of that infrastructure to be able to gain access to it. And the simpler you make it, the less secure it can potentially be. Now, they all have built-in mechanisms whereby logging in or authenticating against those services, you can secure those. One of the biggest things that I push, and I push it all the time, I push it often, I always talk about it, is two-factor authentication. So in terms of the security and those cloud services being hacked, forget it. There is, everyone's been trying for a long time. I don't think they're going to get hacked. They're just not. But they may be penetrated by cyber criminals using your authentication to get in. And something basic that everybody should do is just turn on their second factor of authentication for all of their cloud services, just to better protect it. So if somebody did get your password and tried to log in, what two-factor authentication does is you install an app on your phone, or it might send you an SMS, but when you go to log in, it will say, okay, hey, someone's tried to log in. Just to confirm it's you, can you just grab your mobile and just let me know that this is legitimate as you go to log in? And that's hugely powerful. So even if someone stole your password, hacked your password, whatever that happens to be, turn that on and that will make that far more secure.
Yeah, as somebody who keeps all of my, big fan of the Google 2FA is getting a fair run as an app on my phone these days. So everything's sent to me a text message for this, log in for this, do this here. And, occasionally clients give me access to their side of things. I'm like, okay, well, you need to be on the phone so you can, but
absolutely.
Yeah, it makes things, like, at the end of the day, it's peace of mind, isn't it? That's what you want. You want peace of mind that, hey, our things are secure, because I've got a slow internet here today. I'm using mobile. I'm using my hotspot. It's killing me. If I had half a dozen staff and our internet is down, let alone our entire system has been hacked or we've been shut out, it causes massive issues. So, yeah,
huge disruption. And when I have seen organizations that have been hacked before, there's obviously their notifiable data breach. So they have to notify the government that they've been breached. There's the process of going through, working out or determining what's been lost, what's been stolen, who to notify, how to best protect them. And throughout that entire process, it's reputation gone. You know, everything that you thought you had and you'd worked so hard for so long, some random dude in Romania hacks into your system, steals your information, and that's it. That reputation that you've built over the last 10, 20, 30 years is gone overnight because you have to report that you've been breached. And, you know, it's pretty embarrassing for you. And, you know, I suspect it doesn't look real good on your resume with your clients either. So, yeah, not a great spot to be.
Not exactly the selling point that clients are looking for. So, yeah.
Not particularly.
Even in Corona, things are a little bit quieter, and you know, maybe you've got a little bit more time on your hands. You don't want to be spending it doing that. Nobody wants to not only have the headache, but then have an additional pile of work be created. Nobody needs that. So,
absolutely.
Mate, I think there's a ton of gold in that for people to look at. One thing, maybe to just finish on. What's your parting piece of advice for somebody who's thinking, hey, there's room for improvement in how we operate from an IT point of view, whether that's security, whether that's, you know, automation and things. What's your parting piece for them?
Yeah, this may come as a complete surprise to people, but in the context of technology and what you can do with technology and what's important to you, I would start by not looking at the technology and look at your business first. So I think you touched on it earlier, right, about defining processes and all of those things. They all sound really warm and fuzzy, right? Sounds great. But now what you should be looking for in terms of an IT provider is an IT provider that can look at your business plan, which you've already defined, and unequivocally say, this is what you need to help you achieve your goals based on this business plan or this strat plan that you've put together. So my advice to people would be define your business plan or define your strategic plan. Call on resources that can help you do that. So, you know, always happy to give you a plug here, Marty. This is what you do, right? You can help people define these things and put these strategic plans and these business plans into action. Do that first. Define some processes in your business. Define where you want to go, and then look at the IT resourcing that is required to deliver that. IT is so broad. There's just everything under the sun, right? But there's no point just buying stuff because someone recommended it, right? It needs to be well aligned to where you want your business to go and what you need to do. So that would be my advice to people. Start with your business plan, start with your strat plan, work out where you're going, and then draw down or call in the resources that you need to be able to facilitate that. 101.
Good times, mate. Thank you. I appreciate the unintentional plug, all seriousness there. But it's I think it's like if somebody comes to you, I can totally see how that makes your life easy. Somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, Rob, this is where we're going. This is what we're trying to do. This is where we're at now. How do we fill the blanks?" You can help them very quickly, very fast, at a much cheaper price. And if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, Rob, we've got some IT problems. Can you help?" We're starting. We're in a merry-go-round, and who knows?
Reactive, man.
Get off.
Reactive stuff. That's reactive stuff, and you know you fight through the reactive before you can start looking at proactive. 100% agree. Yeah, with what you're saying. Just got to start with that plan, and be proactive about it and work towards that.
Good times, mate. Well, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your insights and your inputs and your questions. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I always do. I always love our catch-ups, and I'm hoping that maybe some people will leave some comments or shoot us some messages, and we might rebook this again. Maybe do another session next month. See if people hit us with some questions, some things they'd like to know from either side of the fence. So it might be related to IT, or it might be related to the range of things you do around improving business and you know, defining process, all of those lovely things, and setting business plans and strat plans. So if anyone has any questions, shoot them through to either Marty or myself. If we are not connected on any social platform, please connect with me, connect with Marty, get in touch, and we look forward to seeing you next time.